Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Chrissy Benz, who is the Executive Director of the MineShift Foundation. She's going to be talking a little bit about empowering workers to become active bystanders, and she's going to explain what that is. I know lots of us may have heard of bystander training before and the importance of it. Just a little bit of a context before we bring Chrissy on here, 86% of mining executives say it's harder to recruit and retain the talent they need compared to even 2 years ago. Okay, so that's even post-pandemic, citing concerns of safety, poor workplace culture as top factors in employee attrition. So that's McKinsey data from 2023. So we would love to hear, Chrissy, about some of the change work that MineShift is working to do. And I don't see Chrissy
I'm
yet. Is she
here.
on camera? There you are. Okay,
Hi.
you're on my second line. I didn't know why you weren't popping up. So tell us, Chrissy, a little bit about what you've seen within mining, or perhaps more generally. What are some of those key driving forces behind the talent crisis, sort of beyond that statistic that we've been speaking about? What's really
Yeah,
going
thank you.
on?
I had the opportunity to hear, I think Carrie and Trina as well, and everything resonates a lot. I think even when you were talking, the competition in the earlier talk as well, as this is just happening to us as a society. Our society has changed post-pandemic. Black Lives Matter. Our tolerance for discrimination and harassment has changed. And Trina, when you're talking about empathy, all the equity, diversity, inclusion work, you can call it whatever you want. And at the end of the day, I'm teaching adults empathy that my children already have. And so we are getting closer back to let's be more human. Let's connect on a human level with each other and not see everyone as workers, as someone who is just there to produce and perform a role. So I think that we're seeing it in general society. I know that Erica, a little bit of my background is also in sport. And so we see this in sport when we see it's no longer enough to go after medals and go win competitions. It's how are we carrying along people's mental health? How are we getting the best out of people? And it's no longer the top down, you will do as I say, because I've told you to. Our culture has changed. Our society has just changed. And exactly what you said, Trina, we're in relationship with each other and we're better understanding that. And so from a talent, you talked a lot about the recruitment side of that. We're seeing just people are not coming to the industry or they're leaving very quickly. So I think McKinsey had mentioned that women represented 40% of new staff, but they leave before middle management. So there's a lot of factors in there of why that's happening. But a lot of it, I would argue, is on the lack of safety. And all the articles also mentioned just if we're not getting promoted, we don't have that earning potential. So we're going to go somewhere else if we're not going to get promoted. I'll put in the chat after, but on MineShift Foundation, mineshift.org, we have two of the reports from Goldfields as well as Rio Tinto. And in both of those independent reports, very thorough, highly encourage you to read them to see what is really happening within organizations. 50% of people report bullying in the workplace. That is catastrophic. We are sending people home harmed to their families. We are now as a society saying we will not do this anymore. And so I think that this is a very positive change. I think that in the mining industry, we're seeing a lot more compliance. We're seeing the policies, procedures, but those are very slow moving. So I think the power of empowering bystanders is really that's how we change the culture, is we empower all of us. We're feeling the same way in all the conversations that we have with folks within mining industry. Our incredible founder, President Susan Lomas, our whole board, we're collecting these stories from folks, and there's a lot of pain. But I think that we have the power to change it because the tide has turned, that more of us are saying we don't want this, but now we just need to figure out how do we do it. We see this across industries, as I said, throughout sport. People are saying that we're not going to tolerate this anymore. But then the biggest thing that people will say to us, but I don't know what to do. So what do I do? And it's very complex. We have to understand power dynamics of why it's more difficult for people to report or follow these processes. We have to understand intersectional identities on why people may have less opportunity to report or may fear more reprisal or retribution, which is very, very real. So what can we actually do? And so this is where MineShift has come up with our digger approach. how do we actually bring people together, share the stories of lots of different people's perspectives, and then figure out what is the strategy? How can I say something that is safe for me, protects my own mental health? And so that's really what we do at MineShift. And I think, you know, everything you mentioned, Trina, about we saw the Great Resignation, we saw languishing, we saw quiet quitting, the Great Tsunami. All of these HR trends are coming, but at the core of it is people can't do their best and they can't show up if they are not feeling safe. We see this in sport all the time. If you operate from a place of fear, your capacity to perform is severely impacted. If you are being bullied and harassed, it actually affects your brain. Neuroscientists can show on an MRI scan where your brain is actually being affected, where it's swelling and shrinking in certain areas. Highly recommend The Bullied Brain by Jennifer Fraser, PhD. It talks about that. The neuroscientists can tell us you cannot function at a high level. All that top level thinking, all the stuff that you would do to prevent incidents at work, you no longer have that function if you are under threat. And that's what bullying and harassment is. So the more that we can stand up for each other, understand the challenges of those that we're working with. We also saw that a lot of the bullying is coming from your colleagues. It's not just in the leadership. So it really is, what can we do? And a lot of it, I think, other than the most egregious ones that are probably, you know, more suited for very formal processes, there's a lot of little things that are happening every day. Everyone's heard of microaggressions at this part. There's nothing micro about these aggressions, right? And so it's what can you do to intervene, to interrupt, to document, to support the person. I think it's exactly what you said, Trina. How do we have conversations? I think you mentioned Peggy as well. How do we have conversations, difficult conversations, when we prioritize the human beings in front of us and beside us in the workplace so that we can go home whole and healthy and be part of our regular community? So that's a lot of what we talked about. We had a little bit of overlap, I think, with Trina's section as well, just in terms of the recruitment strategies and the lack of talent that we have. And actually, I should rephrase that. It's not the lack of talent. It's that the talent won't come here if it's not safe. We can't come to these places if we're not going to be safe. So a lot of diversity and inclusion initiatives, if you don't address the safety, you're actually causing me more harm by pretending I'm going to be safe here. So I think that the more that we can do to help each other and understand power imbalances, work together, everyone that we talk to, it's 98% of people want to help other people, want to make sure that we're safe. It's just empowering yourselves on how do we actually do it in a real way. Because I will tell you, the moments that I haven't stood up and said something, I still think about it. You still go to bed at night thinking, I should have said something. So that's what we do with our bystander workshop, is that we give you some tools, we get you to practice some phrases, real life case scenarios that are from the mining industry, directly from our board, stories that have been trusted to us, and we present them. And it's really powerful when you have a team from one organization in that session together, talking about tough things in a very professionally facilitated way, and really unpacking, well, why wouldn't you come forward? What would be a barrier for you? What might be a safer way for you to intervene, interrupt? Lots of different options. So I think that it's really powerful when we go through the case study scenarios of, we all kind of know this intellectually, but just like any skill, how do you practice it? What are some like really great little phrases of, I'm sorry, Erica, I didn't understand that joke. Can you explain it to me?
Mm-hmm.
That's not calling out somebody, that's not embarrassing them. We can't learn if we're in a shame spiral. So it's how do we invite people into a learning space for the benefit of everyone and safety for everyone at work? So I'm rambling now with a lot of things, wondering if there was questions. I see a few chats here.
Yeah, I just love, Chrissy, the way that you're laying this all together. I feel like the mining industry, by and large, has really gotten its head around the fact it's not okay to physically injure people. Like, that's pretty much an imperative. You know, anytime I'm at a site, I hear them talking about, you know, safety and have a safe day. Like, it's really woven into the everyday fabric of how they do things. And you're laying the psychological safety, that emotional safety on top of that and saying that's the new imperative. and it might have been invisible or sort of underestimated
Mhm.
previously, and now we know better. And it sounds like your digger course, your bystander training, really offers the tools to help people kind of create and foster that safety. I'm curious who takes this course. Who would this physically be for? Like which roles in the organization?
All of them, to be honest, because
Huh.
we all have the power to impact culture. We all have that power in any role. And so I know Trina talked a lot about the leadership. So I think that's why I'm next, is to talk about all of us have an opportunity to contribute to culture. And being quiet is your contribution. That means you're upholding harmful behaviors because you're not intervening. And so obviously, all the mining teams that are getting set for spring and going out on site are really keen to take this as a safety protocol, part of reminding people of policies. And working with those particular teams is really powerful, but also on the administrative executive side as well, because you're creating policies. So really understanding what's happening on the ground is critical for those they're setting the policies and enforcing the policies. I think someone mentioned there the tension between safety and accountability. And this is what I love about, this is where my hope comes from, is that we talk about how many days since a site incident. Like you talked about, we no longer accept all injuries are preventable. And so now if you look at labor codes in Alberta, they talk about psychological injuries that causing psychological harm. So now this is protected under the labor laws. So we are moving in that way. So if we were able to do it of no injuries, everything is preventable, we're just going to expand that definition to also psychological injury. We cannot be harming and abusing people, discriminating against people, taking away opportunity for them to earn a living by not promoting them, or keeping them away from certain jobs anymore. So it's an exciting time, I think, because we really see that on the ground, people want this. There's a lot of head nodding when we start introducing a lot of the content at the beginning of the workshop. People are like, yes, I understand this. And then the critical piece is, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know what word would I say? And even sometimes the confidence of, could I really say that to a supervisor? How might I do that? And so showing people different options, it doesn't have to all be calling out, not canceling people. It's really, as I said, seeing it as an invitation for learning. And I really think that the more people see each other stand up, is really powerful. And again, in the case studies of our workshop as well, hearing what other people say, the challenges that they have, or the ideas they have, I was really impressed. There was a person that really complex situation that a lot of people are grappling with, and he said, nope, that crosses the line. I won't stand for it. And I just thought, if I was his colleague, I would feel so great knowing he's on my team. That is a huge green light for me, that I could go to him with any problem that I have, and I feel like he would have my back. I'm not sure maybe you don't even work with him on a team. So there's this really amazing way to connect with people and understand where people are coming from, and dig deeper into who we are and what matters to us as a human being versus the roles that we're performing in a company.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brenda used the word trust in the chat here. That's sort of the fundamental of what we're creating here, and saying, we acknowledge your experience. We're not going to pretend it away. We're not going to downplay it just to kind of keep from rocking the boat, which I assume is why and how we ended up in that situation that we were before. So thank you for explaining how you're providing tools and a safe, very tangible way to start shifting that culture in the right direction. I really appreciate it, Chrissy. And I'd love it if you'd throw a link in the chat or something that people can have a look at to learn more about your organization.
And I see Brenda here, just the comment in the chat about historically the mining industry has not been safe, and changing it. And I remember being on another discussion where they said, well, how do we convince college students to go into mining? And, like, we need better PR. And I thought, we need to make it safer. You need to adapt. And that's what I think about. The policies are so rigid, and we need them. We absolutely need them for the accountability piece and sort of that regulation. But the biggest piece is the world is changing so fast. Language is changing so fast. And that's where I think it's us as the people in an organization that create the culture, and we hold where the line is. And I also think the most powerful part is interrupting behavior so it doesn't escalate and so that it doesn't compound. And that's what a lot of it is if no one interrupts it, it just builds and builds and can bury people in terms of it just becomes unsustainable weight for folks. So we do offer individual, but online, and we're going to offer one in May. And then we also are working with a lot of organizations as they head out on site as well. So I will
That's
definitely
great,
put our
Chrissy.
link in, and I think I'm over time. So thank
You're
you.
right on time. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Chrissy. And thank you, everyone. You're getting some virtual applause from the crowd. Really